Hello, my name is Janine Liebert, and I'd like to welcome you to LA Law Library and today's presentation, Voters with Disabilities, Accessible Voting. How many of you are here for the first time today? Okay. Everyone else has been here before. In case you didn't know already, this is your law library. It is public and open to everyone, 6 days and 1 evening each week. In addition to, here at the LA Law Library, you can use our legal resource materials, get help from our highly trained reference librarians, use our computers, get a borrower card, and check out materials. In addition to the basic services, there are extra you can purchase, like renting conference rooms, getting copies made, having materials scanned and emailed to you, attending more classes like this one. We offer classes year-round. Some are free and some are for a fee. You can check out the schedule on our website. On the website, you can also find locations and hours for branch and partnership locations throughout the county. Please remember that LA Law Library does not provide legal advice. If you want personalized advice or to be represented in court, you should consult with your own attorney. So enjoy this class and don't stop visiting us when Pro Bono Week ends. Today is the second day in our Pro Bono Week celebration, and the celebration carries on throughout the week with free classes and programs throughout the week, culminating in a public legal services fair on Saturday, October 26th. Remember to fill out your class evaluation forms and return those to the registration desk after the class. And now I'd like to turn over today's presentation to Gabe Taylor, who is a voting rights advocate, a position that he's held for the past 4 years with Disability Rights California, which is a statewide advocacy group and one of the largest in the state.
Thank you so much, Janine. So today we will be talking a little bit about voters with disabilities and the process of accessible voting. So just quickly, I wanted to give a little bit of intro background information on Disability Rights California. As Janine said, we are the statewide protection advocacy organization for people with disabilities. We provide a wide range of advocacy services, including housing, voting, transportation, advocacy for folks who are in state hospitals or in home care facilities. So we cover a pretty broad range of services. As I mentioned, I'm the voting rights advocate, so my focus has been particularly on voting. But the philosophy of Disability Rights California is to advocate, educate, investigate, and litigate to advance the rights of and dignity and equal opportunities of all people with disabilities. So we focus primarily on educating and investigating before we have to go to the step of litigation. So today we will be talking about the requirements for the accessible voting systems and the requirements for accessibility for in-person voting at polling places. We will be talking about new technology that allows for accessible vote by mail, so for people who want to do a vote by mail from home. And then we'll be talking a little bit more about the rules for voting while under conservatorship for folks who have been placed under conservatorships. We will be talking about the steps that California has taken to improve the voter registration process and the voter registration rates. And then one of the more exciting things that's on the horizon has been the development of LA County's new voting system. And also with that, their shift to vote centers, which will be replacing polling places and will be implemented as part of the Voters' Choice Act, which we will get into a little bit later. And then lastly, we'll be talking about opportunities for community members and you all to get involved with the elections process in the county. So first off, what we strive to really capture and work towards with counties throughout the state is to ensure that people with disabilities have a private and independent voting experience and right to their ballot. So for any of you who remember all of the problems that happened in the 2000 election with the Bush v. Gore, as a result of that, Congress passed something called the Help America Vote Act. And part of that bill was to ensure that polling places be accessible for people with disabilities. And that includes accessible paths of travel and also accessible voting systems. So polling place accessibility. We work really heavily with counties throughout the state to ensure that they are doing everything they possibly can to make all of their polling places accessible. So first is you must have accessible parking, which includes access in the aisleways and also making sure that parking places that are designated for people with disabilities have correct signage and visible signage and also are in fact accessible. So paths of travel, this is a big one that we work on to make sure that there's an accessible route in and out of a polling place. And this includes accessible parking, passenger drop-off sites that are accessible, accessible public transportation stops. So any polling place that is close to a public transportation route, they have to make sure, and we work with counties to make sure that the paths of travel to and from those bus stops are accessible. We also make sure that they have accessible ramps and that there's no protruding objects or things that would cause a barrier for someone who may be in, say, like a motorized scooter or wheelchair. And then finally, we have to also work with counties to make sure that the doorways into the polling place entrances are big enough and wide enough for voters who may use mobility devices. So as part of the legal requirement, in California, every polling place is required to have at least one accessible voting system. So these systems ensure that a person with a disability has the ability to vote privately and independently. These voting systems are accessible both via touchscreen and through an audio interface. And so most of the voting systems have capability to be able to also work with people's assistive technology. If they use, say, paddle switches or sip and puff devices, we work to make sure that the voting systems include those features. So voters with disabilities have the right to be able to get assistance to be able to complete their ballot. They can get assistance from family members or a friend or a poll worker. So curbside voting for folks who may have difficulty getting in and out of a polling place, curbside voting is a great feature and service. It allows somebody to be able to pull up to any polling place in their county, and oftentimes if there will be either signage stating that folks can call a certain number and it'll ring a cell phone typically inside the polling place that will alert a poll worker inside that there's somebody who would like to do curbside voting. And they'll answer the phone, and then they'll bring out a ballot to someone's car. Oftentimes, if there's not a signage with a number, there will either be a person stationed outside a polling place to offer this service, or sometimes there will be like a little doorbell um, that will be attached to a pole that folks can ring, and it'll alert somebody inside the polling place. So the only folks that can't assist somebody with their ballot or to assist them within the polling place are if someone is the voter is a member of a union or their employer. So they can't have an agent of their employer or a union worker assist them. And then also they are not allowed to have no more than 2 people assist them during their voting experience. So a little bit about the requirements on registering to vote. You can fill out a voter registration card. A lot of counties, most counties provide links to be able to vote online. LA County is the same. You can also go to the Secretary of State's website and register through they have a link on their website that allows people to register. There's also pre-registration for 16 and 17-year-olds, and then the DMV provides voter registration opportunities for folks coming in for different services at their local DMV offices. And we've been working with the DMV offices to make sure that they have accessible stations at each one of their offices for folks with disabilities who may want to come in and complete any of the voter registration forms. Also, there are state agencies such as Department of Rehabilitation, a lot of county mental health offices, and then independent living centers in each county and other various state and county agencies are required by law to be able to provide folks with voter registration opportunities. So in case you're interested in ever wanting to get the official report on the statistics of what agencies are providing the voter registration and get the specific numbers for each year, you can go to the Secretary of State's website and go to this link, and it'll call up the monthly reports, and it'll give you the totals for how many, which agencies and offices have the different totals. So who can register to vote? You must be at least 18 years of age or older. You must be a U.S. citizen. You cannot be convicted or on parole for a felony. You must be registered at your current address. And I always tell people that if they move or they're oftentimes when for example, I moved from Orange County to LA County. So when I did that, once I got to my new address, I updated my voter registration. And it's very simple. You can go online, or you can always contact or go into your county elections office and ask for a new voter registration card, and they can provide that for you. And then the last requirement is that you cannot be found mentally incompetent by a court of law. So that sort of leads us into the discussion of SB 589. So in 2015, the California State Legislature passed State Bill 589, and the main provision of that bill was that a court, before it removes the right to vote of someone who is under a conservatorship, it must show clear and convincing evidence that the person cannot communicate a desire to vote. And without reasonable accommodation. And also there is the presumption that a person who has completed a voter registration form is able to communicate or desire to participate in the voting process. So, because it was passed because a lot of the courts were taking away a person's right to vote who was under a conservatorship automatically. And so it was passed as a way to prevent that and to make sure that people who are under a conservatorship, because not everyone who is unable to understand what the voting process is about and have a desire to do that. So a conservatorship can only take away someone's right to vote when a court finds that the conservatee is mentally incompetent. And so mentally incompetent, that means that there must be clear and convincing evidence that a person cannot communicate with or without reasonable accommodation a desire to participate in the voting process. So there should be a check, for the court order appointing a conservator, there should be a box, a section that says whether or not a voter has been disqualified. If the box is not checked, then they are eligible to vote. So the county elections office should have record of if a voter is not, if they are or are not eligible to vote. So if the client is a regional center client, they can always ask their case manager to check on this status as well. And then the conservator, they can also ask, the conservator can also determine whether or not the person has a right to vote. So DRC, one of the things that we do is we work to, for anybody who is been placed under a conservatorship and may have had their right to vote taken away, we can always, they always have the right to be able to petition the court to reevaluate their situation and determine whether or not, make a new determination to see if they might in fact be able to communicate a desire to vote. So, and they would, a conservatee can get the right back by waiting for a court's regular review of the conservatorship or contacting the court to request a new review. And we also have information, we have, aside from a whole range of publications, we have one specifically on how to draft a letter for requesting this reinstatement. So information about that is available on our website if you go directly to this link. So one of the larger issues that came up, particularly in the 2018 election for us, was the issue of emergency medical ballots. We often, one of the things that DRC provides is, it's a free service. We provide an election hotline, for a voting hotline for people who may have questions or concerns or situations on or around election day. So we provide it as a service for people who can call our 800 number and be able to get information. So one of the biggest issues we had were folks calling in from Either they were at home and had some type of medical situation where they weren't able to get out of their home to go vote in person. And because in some of the cases the medical situation was unexpected, it was an emergency, they had not requested a vote by mail ballot. So we work with folks to walk them through and assist them with requesting a medical emergency ballot. So these medical emergency ballot requests are done if oftentimes if somebody is, say, in a nursing facility or in the hospital or at home because of an illness or a disability, and they cannot go or they cannot go to their local polling place in person, or sometimes if their polling place is not accessible or the voting equipment at the polling place is not accessible. All of these are situations that we've come across and assisted people with. So you can give a written statement if you are interested in requesting a emergency medical ballot. You can draft a statement to your local county elections office. Many of the county elections offices also have specific forms available on their website, or if you go to their office, they will often have them. But so you have to fill out this form if you need assistance doing it. The person helping you must write the words "witnessed by" on your statement and sign their name, just acknowledging that they assisted you in completing the form. And the county elections official should mail you a ballot and identification envelope. You must return the ballot and sealed identification envelope, sign your name and write the date on the envelope, and write the name of the person who you want to return the ballot on the envelope. So you must designate a particular person who will be returning the ballot to you if you're not mailing it back. So the county elections offices also should be providing language assistance to voters. So federal and state laws require state and counties, the state and the counties, to provide language assistance for specific or different certain language minorities who need to vote in languages other than English. So these are some of the examples of the the languages that are included on the ballot marking device, the new voting system for LA County. So a little bit of information on the Voters' Choice Act, which come next year in 2020, LA County will be implementing all of the different components of this new law. So it was passed in 2016, and as a requirement, Voters' Choice Act counties must include these 3 different choices for folks to be able to vote. So they can either complete a vote by mail ballot. People with disabilities may be able to download the ballot and use their assistive technology to read and mark it. They may print it out and then mail it back or return it in person to a drop box. Drop box locations are being provided in these different counties that are moving forward with the Voters' Choice Act. Folks can drop off their ballot at any secure location. No postage is required at these drop boxes. Then if you're like me, I always encourage people, if they're interested and able to go vote in person, just because it's sort of an exciting experience to be a part of the sort of energy of these new vote centers. So the change and the shift is that at these vote centers, in previous years, you've had to go to one particular assigned polling place. And that's not going to be the case anymore starting next year. You can go to any vote center in your county. The other big shift is that instead of only going to vote on a particular Tuesday, you can vote for up to 11 days. So you have 10 days prior to Election Day to go vote. So at these vote centers, you can either vote or drop off your ballot, get language assistance, use the accessible voting system, and also you will have the advantage at these vote centers that they will have extended hours on Election Day. So as I mentioned before, the Voters' Choice Act was passed in 2016, and it was a way to increase convenience and voter turnout for all voters throughout the counties. And it was a way to kind of increase participation among the wide range of voter demographics that exist in California. So in 2018, 5 counties moved forward towards the Voters' Choice Act: Madera, Napa, Sacramento, and San Mateo counties moved forward. So in 2020, 9 additional counties, including LA, will be moving towards the Voters' Choice Act. Orange County, one of the counties close to us, it will also be moving towards the Voters' Choice Act. So the difference in LA County that's different than any of the other Voters' Choice Act counties, they will not automatically be sending out a vote-by-mail ballot to all voters, all registered voters. But as a requirement, because they don't have to send that out to every voter, they will have more vote centers throughout the county that folks can go visit. They'll have a total of 1,000 vote centers that will be available for those 11 days. So the other statistic to be aware of is 1 in 4 voters in California live in LA. So that's a pretty large number of voters. So voters with disabilities in all 58 counties beginning next year will be able to download a ballot, fill it out on their own device, and print it and return it to the county elections office by 8 p.m. on election night. So one of the important things that we've really worked with counties to, and this was a big effort that we've done in LA County particularly, is to work with community-based organizations to collaborate and partner with county elections officials to make sure that they're getting input and feedback and participation from advocates and community members, both from the language community, from the disability community, and from community advocates in general, just to make sure that they're putting in place services and programs relating to the Voters' Choice Act implementation that will ensure accessible services for all different voters. So so why the change? Now you can choose how you vote, whether it's voting by mail, a drop box, or a vote center. You can choose the method that best works for you. Now, while LA County will not automatically be sending out vote by mail ballots to every voter, you still have the option to be able to request a vote by mail ballot. You can do that by going either in person to the county elections office down in Norwalk, or going on their website and requesting a vote by mail ballot. So you can choose when you vote. So as I said, you will have 11 days total, including election day, to be able to go in person. You can do that by mail or dropping off starting a month before the election, in person during an 11-day period, including weekends, ending on election day. So the vote centers will be open on both Saturday and Sunday, so that's another shift. And there will be extended hours on the vote centers, so they'll be open during the evenings as well. So you can choose where you vote. You can vote in person at any of the vote centers. The other great thing is that because one of the other things that they'll be providing is, because you can go to any vote center, all you have to do is go in, and once you check in at the check-in station, you give them your name, and they'll be able to call up your specific ballot. So all of the races, the contests that relate to your specific voting district, they'll be able to access a ballot for you. So all you have to do is give them your name when you check in, and they'll be able to hand you a particular ballot that will have your specific contests. You also get the support that you need. The vote center staff are trained more extensively because they have to work many more days than a typical polling place worker. They'll be there to assist voters, including providing assistance in multiple languages and assisting voters with disabilities to vote privately and independently. So there will be 10 to 50 accessible voting systems included, or ballot marking devices included in every vote center. Conditional voter registration, so that's one of the big other big shifts, is that somebody who may have forgotten to register can go in literally on election day and be able to vote with conditional voter registration. And then there'll be ballot drop-off opportunities, ballot replacement. So if you say you got a vote by mail ballot, but you lost it or you forgot to bring it with you, you can go into any one of the vote center locations and they can give you a replacement ballot. And then again, you can vote at any one of the vote centers in the county area. So how many vote centers must there be? On election day and 3 days before, there will be one vote center for every 7,500 voters. So as opposed to one polling place for every 1,000 voters. For 6 days prior, there will be one vote center for every 30,000 voters. And vote centers will be open normal business hours, including on weekends and election day. Vote centers will be open 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. So many voters with disabilities find it easier to vote by mail. A lot of folks will do permanent vote by mail registration. So for people with certain disabilities, those who are blind may have vision loss, people with mobility or dexterity or intellectual or developmental disabilities. Voting by mail requires them to vote or to waive their right to a private and independent voting experience, because paper ballots often require folks to be able to read the ballot to them, so thereby taking away their privacy. Oftentimes, if a voter is required to use a pen to mark the ballot, if they have mobility or dexterity disabilities, that requires them to be able to get assistance from someone. So county elections officials need to consider the proximity of vote centers to voters with disabilities, so to ensure that many of them can be able to cast a private and independent vote. Things such as proximity to public transportation, proximity to population centers, proximity to minority communities, and other factors must all be considered. And that was one of the things that the LA County did. They recently they hosted several rounds of community meetings where they got input and feedback from community members and community advocates to make sure that they were selecting vote centers or potential vote centers that would meet all of these requirements. So they, as part of that feedback process, they created a portal where folks could go online onto the county's website, and they had a specific section where they provided opportunities for people to go on and suggest vote center locations. So that was really helpful for folks. Also, many voters with disabilities have a hard time finding transportation. So that's something that the counties also have to keep in mind, because if they're too far away, oftentimes it makes it difficult for voters with disabilities to get to those locations. So as I mentioned, one of the new developments for LA County is that they will be introducing a new voting system. So the Voting Solutions for All People, or the VSAP, will be implemented for the first time in a larger election setting beginning next year in March. So some of the features, it includes a touchscreen interface, audio instructions with a tactile keypad controller. It includes multiple language capabilities that you will have the option to be able to select at the start of your voting experience. It has adjustable font size for folks who may have difficulty reading small print. It adjusts the screen contrast for folks who may have difficulty looking at different colors of texts. And then, as I mentioned, it also includes sip and puff and paddle switch capabilities that are, as you can see, there's on the left side of the ballot marking device, there are outlets that allow folks who use that type of assistive technology to be able to plug their assistive technology into. So, remote accessible vote by mail is a really convenient service for folks and is a requirement of all of the counties moving forward towards the Voters' Choice Act. So by using remote accessible vote by mail, a voter can use their own assistive technology to read and mark a ballot. So it allows somebody to be able to do this from the comfort and convenience of their own home. They can use it on their own home computer. Because of security reasons, they will need to print out the ballot and mail it back. The Secretary of State has certified 2 systems, and another one is in the process of getting tested as well. So a voter would request a remote accessible vote by mail ballot from their county elections office. There's a postage paid application that is required under the Voters' Choice Act. They can do that by requesting it online or through email. They can always send an email to the county elections office or do it over the phone. They can call to the local county elections office. Once the request is received, excuse me, an email with a link to the remote accessible vote by mail ballot will be sent to the voter. So voter would click on the link and enter their voter information into a secured portal. At this time, the voter would then affirm that they are in fact a voter with a disability. Type of disability is not asked. They're not required to give that information. And then a voter would download the specific ballot type and any additional information and instructions on how to mark and return the ballot. So, voter marks their ballot by using they can use their own assistive technology, whether that's jelly switches, a screen reader, mouse keys, sip and puff, etc. Once complete, a voter can then print out the ballot with the selections and place it in the envelope. Envelopes will then be mailed with vote-by-mail ballots or downloaded with supporting documents and information. Voter must sign the ballot or sign the envelope, and they can return the ballot. It must be postmarked within 3 days or dropped off at a drop box or a polling place or a vote center by 8 p.m. on election day. So at the elections office, voters' file is reviewed to verify the voter did not, in fact, already vote. Remote accessible vote by mail envelope is signature checked against the voter's signature. And once the above steps are cleared, ballots will be opened and duplicated onto an official ballot for tabulation. So among throughout the state, there is a coalition of organizations that have been created called Voters' Choice California. And it includes civil rights organizations, government advocates, and community-based organizations. It also includes election officials. And so the VCC works with county elections officials to ensure that all voters benefit from, or at least are not harmed by anything in the Voters' Choice Act. So we work to ensure that all of the requirements of the Voters' Choice Act are being met to the best of a county's ability. So the steering committee that exists includes Disability Rights California, the ACLU of California, the League of Women Voters, Asian Americans Advancing Justice, the National Association of Latino Elected Officials, or NALEO, and the California Association of Clerks and Election Officials, or the CACEO. So the VCC also has a website for more information, voterschoice.org. So it has a lot of information on the counties that are included in the Voters' Choice Act and resources for more information. So local voices are really critical in getting feedback and information out to the communities, and also making sure that that the counties are doing what they need to do to abide by everything in the Voters' Choice Act. So it helps for knowing information on where the vote centers are located, where the drop boxes are located. It also is really important to get the voter education and increase voter education throughout the county on the Voters' Choice Act. Because one of the other really important things is because a number of the counties are moving forward towards the Voters' Choice Act, but still there are a great number of counties throughout the state that still use polling places. So because of the way that the media works and getting the word out to people, a lot of people who may be in a Voters' Choice Act counties a Voters' Choice, or may not be in a Voters' Choice Act county, may be hearing all of this information about new voting systems and new vote center locations that will be replacing vote centers or polling places. And so it's very important to make sure that we're all sort of working in this together to make sure the correct information is getting out to people. So how to provide feedback on the written plan. So the Voters' Choice Act counties are required to create an election, what's called an election administration plan. So for those counties moving forward, they are required to publish that election administration plan on their website. So LA County has just posted the draft of their election administration plan. And so they have it available for folks, and not only can you review the plan itself, and it's pretty extensive, it's over 100 pages, but it does have particular sections on language assistance and services for different language communities, but also it includes information on voters with disabilities and all of the services that will be provided to people with disabilities. So you can review that plan and provide the county with comments or feedback on things that you think they should change in the plan, or things that you think should be included, maybe added to the plan that they didn't include. So you can submit comments at the public hearing. They have a series of 5 public hearings that will be coming up. The first one will be happening next week in Long Beach on the 23rd. For more information, you can go to their website. They have a particular section that lists all of the community or the public hearings that will be happening. You can do it by mail, by email, or by phone. So, and then we've been working for the past year to do a lot of voter education and outreach, but there will be more upcoming in the months before the 2020 election. The county will be hosting voter education workshops as well. There will be at least one bilingual workshop each in Spanish, Chinese, Tagalog, Japanese, and Hindi. There will also be a workshop for voters with disabilities as well. So organizations are encouraged to hold their own voter education meetings and workshops. We've been collaborating with several organizations, UCP and Asian Americans Advancing Justice, to partner and create or host meetings to get information out to community members as well. So other options are to share information, just general information about the Voters' Choice Act at any of your community events. The voterschoice.org has a lot of information. It also has information that you can print out and take with you to different events, or if you do presentations on your own or different community meetings or groups that you're a part of. They have information that's sort of one or several sheets that you can bring out and just has a whole bunch of information on all of these changes. You can distribute informational flyers in community spaces, spread the word through mainstream social media, ethnic and social media. So if your organization or you're part of any group that has Facebook pages or Twitter accounts, we always encourage folks to get the information out however you can. And then any sort of creative um, outlets that you can think of, independent of anything that I've mentioned, are also helpful. So LA County has a great opportunity for folks that, for especially folks with disabilities, that provides people sort of a direct line of contact to the county elections officials. So as part of the Voters' Choice Act implementation, all of the counties moving forward with implementation must have a voting accessibility advisory committee. So these voting accessibility advisory committees, or VACs, are community-based committees that are made up of people who either themselves have a disability or represent the disability community in the local county area. So many of the folks who serve on the LA County VAC either work at disability service organizations or are county-wide advocates. So as I mentioned, the committee provides the county election staff with feedback and input on ways that they can make elections more accessible in their county. They also make sure that the county is doing everything they need to be doing to comply with election laws and provide equal access to all voters. So at this point, does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask? Yes. Yes.
You have mentioned multiple language
Yep.
accessibility.
Yeah.
This includes American Sign Language.
It doesn't include, oh, it doesn't include ASL, but that is an accommodation that can be provided to you if you go to your polling place. And so that's always something that we recommend if, or at a vote center location, if you're interested in getting that assistance, you can always contact the county to see about getting that particular accommodation provided to you. So, yes, you're welcome. So, any other questions? All right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And yeah, we look forward to seeing many of you out there come next March for the elections. And yeah, if you have any questions, you can always feel free to contact me as well. Janine has my contact information, so you can always reach out to her if you want to get a hold of me for any questions. So, thank you.